Oh my god, it's March 31st, 2010. It's day 9 daily number 93, and most of the time I begin a lot of my casts just being like, oh my god, you know, it's sort of an excited oh my god, but today is just like a, oh Jesus, like a sort of day 9 daily, because you'll note for the first time ever, this is the 93rd one of these I've ever done. This is the first time I've been late. It's the first time ever I've had a scheduled cast and I was late, right? I mean, every now and again I cancel it because, you know, I get hospitalized or something like that, you know, some silly little inconvenience. But today was stressful, right? I had like a bunch of deadlines. For instance, today was the 1 week project. It's considered this big event in my program where they give you a project that's pretty big in scope, and you have exactly 1 week to do it, and you have almost no restrictions on it except having satisfied some little prompt sheet that they give you. So that was due at 6 p.m. So I basically woke up at 5 a.m. today, and I was working on that. And then I had a meeting at UCLA I had to go to, and then I come back, and I barely get it done. It's like 5:30 p.m. We're going live with the, look at me, I'm such a cat. So yeah, we went live with the presentations at, 30 minutes later, and, I got mine in, and I was like, yes, I did it. But the thing is that they kept getting longer and longer and longer until the class is supposed to end at 8 p.m., right? But it's 8:15, it's 8:20-ish, right? And it's the last presentation. It's the last one. And I'm like, okay, cool. They're about 15 minutes presentation. I'll get done at 8:30, and I'll head over here, and I'll get ready for the cast. So I need to briefly explain this assignment. We're trying to we have these little stuffed animals. We're trying to create some connection between whoever, because it's an interactive project, we have sort of some empathy between the user and the animal in the project. That was like the goal, to make you want to care about this little inanimate stuffed object that you're only interacting with for like 5-10 minutes or something like that. And most of ours were goofy and dumb, and mine had like fluids in it, so it like felt weird. And so the last one, again, it's 8:20 p.m. And the first thing that pops up is a video of a bear sitting on a bench, and a voice says, I was young when I first learned about the Holocaust. And I'm like, first learned about the what? The what? Because, I mean, I know that this is going to be a tense situation, and it was like a 15-minute, really emotional video involving a stuffed animal, and it was about the Holocaust. And it was long, and like afterwards there's like a silence, and what am I going to do, right? I have to go talk about video games for an hour, cool presentation about the Holocaust. I mean, like what? It was so stressful, because it was like 8:25, and it just comes up, and again, bear on the bench. It's like, I was young when I first learned about the Holocaust, and I was just like, oh my god, So I'm trying to figure out the most tactful way to get out of the situation. Because, I mean, if someone else is doing something else, I could just, pack my stuff and leave, but I can't be shuffling a bag or doing anything at all if that's what's going on. I mean, it's almost like someone coming up to you and being like, yeah, my mom just went into the hospital, and I'm like, well, I have diarrhea, can we wait 20 minutes? So I'm trying to get out, and then afterwards there's a long silence, so I'm trying to, great presentation, gotta back off, no one else is ready to clap, I'm trying to get that started and everything, and finally I made it back, only 10 minutes late, it's not the biggest deal in the world, and unfortunately I generally like to plan, I generally like to have some good idea of what it is I'm going to be doing with these casts, but instead I had to just sort of pop up. So today we're going to be doing a game between Jinro and Nazgul on Desert Oasis, and I've actually been eager to do a Desert Oasis game for quite some time, without, of course, scrolling a million miles up the screen. Yeah, I'm eager to do a game on Desert Oasis because a lot of people seem to dislike it. In particular, I mean, we have these really long paths that we have to move. So here is, the left path, and if we just glance down at the mini-map, that is a really long path along that top edge. Same way with the bottom path. And, this expansion here, I mean, look at Nazgul's expansion. In relation to the ramp, it's pretty displeasing, its positioning. Let me briefly just close my Ren and Stimpy music so it will lag less. There we go. The positioning of the ramp to this expansion is less than good. You don't even really want that. Because, I mean, so here it is, way over here, and then there's this entrance. I mean, look, there's just nothing really defending it. It really is in the middle of nowhere. The best you can really hope for is to close off this choke and try to do attacking along this direction and a little arrow pointing this way. but even then, it's a little bit, so considering both these players are creative, I have not seen this game, so I'm excited to see stuff that they're doing. Oh my god, this is so funny. Yeah, in game 1, between Nazgul and Jinro, Jinro actually expanded early on to the gold minerals on Metalopolis, and then lifted it and moved it to the other gold minerals when Nazgul attacked it, and Nazgul didn't scout it. But anyways, something about this, I think the big reason players dislike this map is they're trying to do their aggressive builds, which work on almost every other map, on this one. And as we clearly note, look, here's this ramp here, and then people will do their attacks. They're going all the way down here. They're going, then they get here, and then they keep going, and okay, I got to your ramp, sweet. And in the meantime, he's, losing to some sort of counterattack here in his base. So what I would suggest is just don't resist it. Don't resist the way that the map flows. What are we noticing about this map that's really important? Oh, look, super short air distances. Think about drops. Think about Reapers. Think about Nidus Worms as Zerg. Seems like very, very, very important. Think about taking a third base earlier. Try to take this one and then this one very quickly. Or try to take this one, and if you're doing your drop tech, move up here to this top left island. That seems great, yeah. Oh my god, I still have that adrenaline pumping in my system. Holy cow. And her presentation was great. It was phenomenal. But man, I gotta, when you gotta talk about video games, you gotta talk about video games. You know what I mean? Anyways, building the barracks on 12. Sometimes I even think that little assumptions like this, like, hey, I'm building my barracks on 12. I mean, why do that, You don't need to get the barracks out early. Technically, if you're going for something like 12 barracks, 13 refineries, so you could build a tech lab and Reaper harass really fast, now it's starting to seem something really good to me. But don't be so automatic and so autopilot with this sort of stuff. So I do want to briefly mention, now this is a little bit of a spoiler if any of you, follow the MLG stuff. Idra played Cathan Luck, and on this map, this was Cathan Luck's build. 10 barracks, 10 refinery, or excuse me, I think it was 10 refinery, 11 barracks, 11 factory, 11 starport, 11 supply. And that starport he got out is, absurdly fast. He got a tech lab at the barracks and then just lifted and traded him off and got a Banshee in Idra's base, before Idra even had the chance to make anti-air. And Idra, immediately lost. Immediately lost to a Banshee, And that only works on this map. Oh my god, and how much does that violate of your rule sets? First you're going to make a refinery first? Holy shit, and then a barracks before a depot, and then a factory before a depot, and then a starport before a depot? First start making a battlecruiser, and then make a supply depot. It's no, that's crazy. It's never, ever, ever, ever going to work. But on a map like Desert Oasis, try to question as much as possible to get some nutty stuff going. So I wouldn't be surprised if the players did stuff standard, but I'm going to be intentionally critical of that sort of play. This stuff, trying to do just a well-timed opening. There's a big difference between standard and a well-timed opening. This is well-timed. Yeah, he's getting gas, gateways, he's getting his nothing blocked. But if he did something like 3 warp gate zealot sentry and tried to push down here, I'd be like, gah. So I'm even loving that Jinro's getting his orbital command really fast, throwing down a tech lab. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw Reapers or something like that. What actually I like doing on this map is just going 1 barracks Reaper and then immediately expanding. Or likewise with Protoss, you can do something a little similar. You can go Gateway Cyber Core, and then you expand and then start getting the warp gate and then build more gateways then. So you get this absurdly fast nexus, and you kind of focus on trying to control stuff here. If he comes up this way, you try to have your 3 warp gates up in time. But I mean, you can definitely 1 gate expand somewhat easily against Terran. Unless the Terran's doing something crazy too, and then you got to be a little bit more careful. But there's also one other thing I want to mention before the action really seems to spike up in this game, which is if you are moving down units along this bottom lane, see this little light white trail here where the scouting occurred, if that happens with your units, if you're moving like that, just send a worker along the other half, at the very least to go to the Zelnaga Watchtower, or sometimes just skip it and have it just constantly wandering down like this. Just following along here to try to see if there's any sort of counterattack going on, or any sort of expanding or movement there in any way. Very early Stalker, don't mind this at all. Doesn't look like we have any sort of early Warp Gate stuff. Instead, an early Robotics facility. I also like this. Why? Because most of the time, nowadays, Protoss cannot build a gateway and then go for Robo Bay right away. Because if you do get this Robotics facility, Terrans can, I mean, if Terran did any sort of 2 or 3 racks, 1 base play, he can attack you and win with a really high percentage. Or, a lot of times, you have players who just bring all their SCVs and Marines and just straight up attack. So that's why many players have been not doing this robotic facility stuff so fast. But on Desert Oasis, works great. And we have the Reaper, just sort of checking out what's up. And look, expanding right away. Oh, Jinro. Oh, how I love your play. And getting another Reaver, hip hip hooray. I just want to briefly go to the Jinro cam. Yeah, Jinro sees that robotics facility is building, so all is well and good in the world. And I'm noticing no gateway units, right? Just letting this money build up. Just a Stalker, just to repel some Reaper harass to get that SCV out of the way. I love it. I love the idea of getting just a Stalker and then doing whatever it is you wanted to do. Ninja fast observer, super ultra fast observer, getting a forge early. Now, before we even see what's up with this forge, early upgrades seems good on this map. You can get away with it. This is the map where you need to think about, what can I get away with? Oh, Day9 calling it, getting it down, regaining his focus, still has a lot of adrenaline in his system. And I'm hungry too. I want to get some pea soup after this. Now this sort of stuff, this is fairly standard, and I wonder if this is necessarily the ideal option. Looks like we're getting 2 tech labs here. I mean, Jinro's a fan of getting like 6 tech lab Marauders right after he expands. It's part of the reason why I love expanding to gold mineral patches instead of these pathetic, sad blue mineral patches. Just because he can support such a big econ. So yeah, we do have 3 tech labs going up. But I think it might be cool to see something like a factory go down right away. Right after this expansion goes up. Because you can get away with it. And, ooh, very early Ghost, another sort of trademark Jinro move. And what's going over here in Naz's base? He's getting that really early forge. He has an Immortal up. Looks like he's getting a lot of Immortals. Oh, cool. He knows that Jinro loves this sort of play. And just if we go to the Nazgul cam, yeah, here we go. Look, he has the Observer in there. What did he see? He saw 2 tech labs and a 3rd tech lab coming up. He's not really going to be worried about Mass Reaper. And even if he is, I mean, Immortals can deal with that quite a bit. And now, actually, now that I've just said that, hell, why not go Mass Reaper? That seems great on this map. I mean, look at the amount of spotting that Jinro has just with an SCV and 2 Reapers. How cool would it be if you see units here, and then you just dart along here with like 12 Reapers, bounce up, kill the Nexus immediately. And then you need to have some sort of miracle defense hanging out at home, but, you know, the Reapers can do quite a lot of delay. Or even if you had an army here, moving down for Protoss, just to swing this way. You don't even have to go around the entire other lane. Hell, Mass Reaper, why not try it? Jinro did try to do it against HeyPro in a Terran vs. Zerg, and it worked decent. He ended up eventually losing the game, and we actually reviewed that one in a Day9 Daily, but it was still cool, and it had bits of truth in it, had a lot of strength in it. You know, would like to see more SCVs here. I'm building up a little bit of money. And this is part of, again, the reason that I'm a little bit about 3 barracks early. What makes 3 barracks early on so awesome is that Marauders with Stim are beastly. So you can do so much aggression with them on a map like Blistering Sands, or even Scrap Station where the distances are a bit farther. But on this map where the distances are crazy, you don't quite have the opportunity to be nutty aggressive with Stim Marauders. And in fact, the way your economy ends up working with Terran, if you have 3 barracks constantly making Marauders, you're kind of low on cash. You end up teching a little bit more slowly. So if you're hindering your tech, you need something to make up for it. On other maps, that thing you're making up for it is the attacking, but you can't quite pull that off here. So I'm a little bit about these 3 barracks so early on. Because, I mean, you can reasonably assume that your opponent is not going to be going for some sort of big mass all-in attack. But cool, very early forge. 3 Immortals moving out right now. And I just want to make sure I get this right on time. I'm just briefly going to speed up. And because I want to demonstrate how awesome upgrades are for Immortals. Look at that. It's 20 and plus 30. And look at 22 plus 33. That's 5 extra damage. That is enormous. Which, if you have 3 Immortals, you can kill Marauders in 2 hits, which, is not the most useful statistic in the world, but, it's definitely helping quite a bit. It basically means that your Immortals normally go like 50 damage, and they kill the Marauder. But here they're going 55, which means that, if you had a Stalker or another unit like a Zealot in there, instead of having 2 Immortal shots and 2 other unit shots, now it's 2 Immortal shots and 1 other unit shot. In other words, it's good, so get it, that sort of thing I said, about let's talk about the shots. That's the sort of stuff that's useful to think about just once, just enough for you to say, cool, it clearly helps me. In a useful fashion. And oh, look at this. Hey, drops, very useful on this map, so let's see some drops. We have yet another Immortal coming out, more gateways. This I'm a little curious of. I don't want to necessarily be like, this is bad, but I'm just curious, how Nazgul is going to be dealing with this sort of thing. Is he going to be attacking with it? I don't know. Sure you can do warp gates. Yeah, there, it looks like it's going down. But, I think being careful is the biggest thing with this sort of build, because you're committing a lot of money. You're going Immortals and 3 warp gates, and your opponent has an expansion, so you need to do some serious damage here. So this is what's nice about Immortals, is that, personally, when I do Immortal drops, I kill supply depots. I see a lot of players just kill the workers by default. And there's a nice little EMP right there. Unfortunately, Nazgul lost an Immortal, but yeah, I really like dropping and like killing some key structure, like this Ghost Academy or something like that. And Jinro doesn't look too phased by it. And there's a starport coming up. An eventual starport. So hey, more dropping action, trying to draw units up. Looks like preparing for this big assault at the front. And notice how Jinro has spotters there. He has another spotter here. He even has like a supply depot over here, spotting for a pylon that would be used for warp gate pushing. That is real good. That just is one of those things you get out of a lot of practice. More shooting going on here. But coolly enough, it looks like Jinro has retreated with his forces. So always try to think about as many uses of a warp prism as possible. Sure, it's useful for harassment. Sure, it's useful for warping in the main. But for me, I'm seeing this as, wow, that's a faster way to get Immortals there. These Immortals are going to take forever. This Immortal is almost done, and this Immortal hasn't even begun his journey. He's on the longest journey. Here's a little probe who's, thinking about expanding. Still pretty close in food. So that's great. Yeah, see, look how fast it kills that refinery. That's so much better than just shooting at those little workers. Of course, since SCVs can be healed by medevacs and repaired by other SCVs, they really should be both armored and light units, so they just take the maximum hurt always. That would make my Zerg Terran a lot easier. But see, look how fast that supply depot went down. That's so awesome. And just backing off, and ooh, a Viking, get me out of here. Oh my god, is he going to lose it? Wow, that was close. So, as much as I love these stim Marauders, the assumption is, well actually let's just sort of see the way this battle plays out. We even got an EMP off. Note that an EMP got off on the Immortals, and that's important because the Immortals' hardened shield only works if the Immortal actually has shields up. The rest of the time, this means that these Immortals are taking full damage from these Marauders. Look how fast these guys are going to fall. And look at, there's quite a lot of SCVs here, and that Marauder count is pretty low. We even have these Zealots in here. And again, with that +1 upgrade for the Immortals, it's 2 Immortals shot and a Zealot shot. And considering the speed at which Immortals shoot, that's good. And look, even with an EMP and a lot of Marauders, this has ended up being really difficult for the Terran to defend. So let's just think about that a little bit. I actually had the luxury, when my carpal tunnel was acting up, of watching Jinro and Nazgul play one another on Lost Temple a bunch of times, with Jinro Terran, Nazgul Protoss, same sort of thing. And Nazgul was experimenting with taking an expansion reasonably early on Lost Temple, and he was getting a robotics facility to try to get a lot of Immortals. And Jinro did almost the identical build that we're seeing here. Excuse me. He got a Reaper up, did some harassment, and once he expanded, he got 4 or 5 barracks and got a bunch of tech labs up, so he could do this Marauder stim pushing.
And it just didn't matter that Nazgul had those immortals up, because they just fell so quickly, right? But there were only about 2 immortals when Jinro's first push came. What we got the chance to see here was that there were about 5 immortals in that first push. There was a lot of immortals involved in that battle. And the reason there were so many immortals is because on Desert Oasis, you can afford to get a robotics facility very fast and start making those immortals really early. So look at the abuse of that map architecture, how Nazgul was both able to stay alive and buy time, and by being able to scout so easily with the Observer, he had the luxury of making the exact composition he needed to do this sort of bust, which really shouldn't be able to happen quite so easily. I mean, even with the harass shutting down a lot of mining here for quite some time, I mean, this should not have worked nearly as well. This Stalker Immortal push should not be working this well on other maps, because the Marauders would have been pressuring earlier on. So just to note, I was saying at the start, hey, you know, we have these 3 barracks here early on. This gets in the way of the economy. This Viking was very late as a result. And the sorts of things that Protosses love doing is drops, so the Viking's good for that. In particular, Colossus rushing, so Vikings are very awesome to get early on. And plus, you can get your own medevacs up and do fancy stuff with them as well. So I prefer fast teching a little bit. Haven't fleshed out a full idea yet, but the sort of thing that involves some sort of relatively fast tech, I might even invest in tanks since I tend to neglect that sort of thing. Might even invest in Thors because they're sweet. You could even just Thor rush straight up. I mean, that's completely and totally viable on a map like this. That actually sounds awesome. I want a Thor rush, you know. You build a barracks, start building the armory, lift the factory that you built, and land it here with a tech lab, and then just Thor rush them. You can bring like 12 SCVs, 20 SCVs, and repair a single Thor, and it's way hard for Protoss to stop. Seems like a nice gimmicky cheese strat. Only works on this map. And I'm confident that you can pull it off because you know what? We saw Chthon Luck do his Banshee rush, so why not Thor rush? And again, pushing in, having a little bit of trouble dealing with it. And notice the amount of damage that Nazgul was able to put down. 47 food versus 32 food. That's big. And Nazgul was able to get an expansion up. But look, this expansion only just came out. This is a fresh, ripe, juicy expo. Most of the time, if you are doing any sort of composition that looks like this early on, 4 unit producing structures, and the most expensive unit producing structure coming out first, you gotta do aggression. You gotta do so much damage. And Nazgul did by getting those 5 immortals up. A little cute harass here that did some stuff, but just having those 5 immortals out to push was so useful. And here's Jinro in the panic mode. And of course, no doubt, if Jinro does manage to lose this game, oh, I'm trying to be all sneaky with my spoilers. If Jinro does end up losing this game, we know that, of course, because all Europeans are friendly, that he'll be happy to have provided his buddy with a win in the Team Liquid Invitational. And we have some immortals being rallied. Whoopsie daisies, that immortal doesn't want to be there. And he makes his way back home. More immortals popping out. Another robotics facility. Because let me tell you something, I recently was experimenting around with getting double robotics facility against Jinro, and holy crap, I never realized how awesome just a lot of immortals were. Because they're expensive, notice that Naz isn't really adding on a bunch more warp gates. Yeah, he has a robotics bay up to get the Colossi, but I would not be surprised if this was just for a bunch of immortals. I mean, yeah, he's getting the Colossus now. Is he getting the Thermal Lance? Doesn't really look like it. But man, Colossus Immortal, especially if you sort of know what state your opponent's in, you know, he has to make a bunch of ground. Oof, that's good. I mean, part of the reason why I prefer to, part of the reason why I prefer to avoid the Colossus in this circumstance is that Immortals can't get hit by Vikings. I mean, that's just like the best. And it looks like this rally point is set way at the worst possible spot. Look at this other guy huffing and puffing and making his way. Well, if this is where you want me to go. And this is another thing I like about Jinro's play. He's good at panic spamming bunkers. Note that there actually used to be 2 bunkers up here. Because bunkers are super salvageable, if you're in a tough spot, throw the bunkers down. It will never be bad, because you can just always salvage them. Especially if you're just looking to briefly stay alive. Some Colossi coming out. Look at this. Almost no gateway units. I actually kind of want to keep the mouse over these and see if anything even gets built. So let's just go ahead and do that as we're wandering around. Still some limitation here. It looks like, by the way, nothing being built. I mean, more barracks being added on. This feels like a little bit of a panic move. And when I say panic move, I never mean panic as in someone just going, "Oh!" and freaking out at their computer and just making some sort of bad decision. I mean, it's the sort of decision you make because you're in a crisis and you need to make a good decision fast that can keep you afloat. So, for instance, throwing down a bunch of bunkers because you see a surprise attack coming that you weren't expecting, that's going to maybe keep you alive, might not work. Some of the percentage of the time it will. So that's what I call a panic move. So these 5 barracks that are going down, this I would call a panic move, just to sort of, I'm way behind. I need to build up a huge a huge army to do something with at some point. And really, even if they're not attacking, they're going to be the only thing keeping me alive. I can't rely on anything cutesy because my opponent is getting free reign to build whatever he wants. Notice Terran's food's at 71, Protoss' food is at 100. And just now, it looks like Nazgul made another set of units. He's making only Stalkers so he can deal with any sort of Viking combination. He's building cannons here to deal with any sort of harassment. He's feeling ahead. Twilight Council for that super ultra critical blink. Yeah, look at Naz getting blinked down instantly. Blink is the Viking killer for your Colossi. It is so strong. Oh my god, is it strong. Now, at this stage in the game, another thing I'm thinking is, maybe, instead of getting this second Robo Bay, just expand again, and then get another Robo Bay. Because Colossi can easily bounce from here back to here, and just defend the main and these 2 expansions super easily. So taking that other third base seems good, and seems more in line with the map. And what, if he drops up here? Yeah, I transition to Colossi, so I will walk up here and kill it. It's not a problem. And of course, again, blink is so critical. Getting another Colossus, brutal. And let's just briefly go to the Nazgul cam. Looks like he's keeping a pretty good eye on his opponent. No, I love the fact that Nazgul is actually keeping this observer right by the starport to keep a count on these Vikings. Probably informed his decision to get Vikings here, or excuse me, to get blink. We even see the chrono boost there doing its thing. And we have the Colossi moving about. Yeah, getting zapped by Stalkers. And we have these Elmag watchtowers going off. Nothing too extraordinary. Scouting the islands. This, to me, feels slightly late. And actually, by slightly late, I think this is way overdue. Not necessarily taking the observer in the main and going to do it, because, you know, the observer in the main is going to be really helpful. But there's these like rules that I have. It's not like I made them up. It's like life in StarCraft just punished me until I obeyed them. When you are ahead, do the following things. Scout all the expansions. I cannot tell you how many games I've lost just because I didn't scout the frickin' expos. In particular, if you have a unit patrolling between expos, make 100% certain that you send the patrol key right down underneath where the command center goes. Because I distinctly remember Zerg vs. Protoss, I was playing on Python, this guy, oh my god, I was so far ahead of him, I was like, this guy sucks, I'm the man. I was using this game as an ego trip, I was so far ahead. And I had a Zergling patrolling from the top main to the top left expo on the map. So that way it would pass through the natural and go up here, and then it would drift all the way back. But the Zergling was literally like on the border of sight range of the Nexus that he just threw down there. So this is what happened. The Zergling moves down the ramp, his probe went up and built the Nexus, and here comes my Zergling back. Oh, it doesn't see anything, and the Zergling goes away right as 30 probes move up there. So he just took that, and then all of a sudden, like, the only time I found it is when he finally built cannons, because he built no cannons. It was half mined out, and then he started to build cannons, and then the cannon just shot my patrolling Zerglings, and I was just like, fuck, because then he had like 30 carriers because he built all the Stargates up there. So that is the first big rule. Always scout the expos. The second big rule, don't attack. Okay, if you get a lead, you don't need a win immediately. You have a lead, so just naturally let that extend out over time. Expand a bit, put the pressure on him that way. You can try to harass, but the big third rule that I tend to follow is be ultra cautious with harassment. Because there's a lot of games, I actually ended up experiencing this more from the defender's end. I would be Zerg, Protoss would just bash down my critical expo, and I'd be like, alright, I've lost, but I'm going to keep playing. And then he would like try to storm drop, and it would screw up, and I would kill it. And then another shuttle would come here, and it would get scourged before anything got unloaded. And then he'd try to get fancy with reavers. And then after a while, I'm realizing I've killed off about 40 food full of units. I mean, a shuttle with 2 reavers is 10 food, and I just killed it with 2 scourge, no problem. So, you know, the 3 big things, which is scout expos, don't attack immediately, ease up on the harassment a little bit, and just another thing that I would throw in there is try to make yourself harass-proof, because big drops is probably going to be the one way that he can get back in the game, and just making sure you've denied that. So that's why I'm like, this is a little bit late, because I cannot tell you how often Terran will be in a bind here, he'll be trying to hold off this big immortal push you did here, and the Terran says, whoops, forgot to macro. I guess I'll just build a command center here and float it to this island to try to get back in the game. Happens a lot, especially at like C- level or lower. Probably what I would say in like silver gold leagues. Those sorts of levels where people are competent but not perfect with their execution. So hey, look, taking this expo feels well timed given this sort of composition. You need to be a little bit more aggressive with this expansion. But again, you don't need to be very aggressive with this expansion. I like taking this one early and then moving down to this 4th. I like that quite a bit more. Sure, I guess you can move down to this earlier, but I'm just looking for more ways to abuse the lengthiness of it. This map is big map. More Colloxin going down. Continuing to Chrono Boost. Again, we love Colloxin, we love Blink, because it allows us to maneuver across these edges with our whole army. And of course the poor immortals are just stuck behind, but they're pretty sweet anyway, so we don't like to bash on them too much. Adding on just more Marauders, would like more diversity, but again, this is such an impossible situation to be in when you lost almost everything early on and you've been given a second chance. So I'm not too concerned with this. I say this a lot. A lot of players will look at this stage in the game and they will say, well, maybe Jinro should have had Thors, or maybe he should have skewed his composition to more Marines and all this stuff. The big answer is, how does Jinro not get in this crappy situation in the first place? And I think it has a lot to do with the 3 barracks early on. More Stalkers doing their thing. Look how cautious Nazgul's being with these Colossi. Keeping the Immortals with them because there's not really much else the Immortals can do, but being real bold with those Stalkers because they're super maneuverable, can blink in and out. And I'm very eager to see what's going to happen with this battle, because as we note, and of course I know the results, as we note, there's not much time left, and a lot of players are not using blink. It seems to be a lot of the Europeans have sort of pioneered this technique quite a bit. So there goes in the Marauder going, well, you know, whatever, let's just do it. It's early, let's just get this over with and go back to bed. So, not the best EMP, followed by one of the best EMPs. And just a note about army positioning. I love that these Vikings are here, floating over these Marauders, as opposed to, like, here, in this area, trying to hit the Colossi. Just because the Stalkers will often autopilot to the Marauders. And the Marauders also have the chance to hit the Stalkers. There's a little bit of shift-click action going on. Still haven't gotten a chance to see Blank. Looks like these Colossi aren't quite going to fall. But the Immortals, I think, were highly underrated in this battle. I am going to actually rewind it to point out how much damage these Immortals are doing. 7 kills on the Immortal, and every single one of those is guaranteed to have been a Marauder. So, I mean, you know, barely doing his thing. No Blink ended up getting used. A little disappointing to me. Come on, Nazgul, blink. Blink for a little bit of flare. No, it looks like he forgot. But let's briefly rewind this battle because I think the Immortals were pivotal to the success of that. Let's look at just our friendly Marauders. And you know what? This is actually going to be very convenient to go to this gameplay and to do these selected units. So if I resume it, yeah. Okay, so let's just briefly pause. We see that these guys are taking up a lot of damage here. We have a hero immortal coming up in front. But that was... Look at the number of hits that those immortals absorbed. In particular, that one that didn't get hit by the EMP. I'm going to rewind that just a little bit more to highlight that. Because, I mean, immortals, people tend to use, like, early on because that's where Protoss found almost every one of his victories at the start of the beta was by immortal rushing. I mean, there were quite a few Marauders here. And then, yeah, these immortals died, and that's very sad. But look how fewer Marauders there were. This was full and actually spilled over a little bit. And now they're all gone, and the only thing that died was the immortals. They just soak up a ton of damage, in addition to dealing tons of damage to these Marauders. So that, I think, is nifty. Super nifty to note. And what's so nice about the fact that these immortals seem to be doing interesting things as the game progresses is that it creates more opportunities for interesting transitions for Protoss. It's not just get gateways and Colossi and be done with it. You know, you can say, oh, what, do I want immortals or Colossi? Do I want to favor more robotics facilities this game and fewer warp gates? I mean, a lot of cool stuff. A lot of cool potential. And there's a blink. Jumping in to defend. And yeah, you know, that's that. And that's all she wrote. But, you know, again, I just think that Desert Oasis is a cool map that allows for a lot of cool things, but there hasn't been people quite bending to the will of the map, I guess I would say. And of course we see Jinro saying good game here because all Europeans are friendly. It's okay to just accept what the map is dishing out to you. The main reason players dislike adjusting their strategies like that is because it's a little bit more work. It's easier to think of a build for Lost Temple and just do that on Coolest Ravine and then do that on Scrap Station and do that on every single map. And Desert Oasis is the specific one where it's like, you gotta do something different. That's part of the reason why MLG has Desert Oasis as their third map in Best of Fives or their fourth map in Best of Sevens, because it's guaranteed to be in the map set, and it's guaranteed to be at a slightly tense situation for the players. I mean, that's where we got to see Idra's cool build, where Idra walled in Machine early on with a Forge and a Gateway. And that's also where we got to see Cathan Luck do that insane Banshee rush against Idra. I mean, just cool stuff happens on that map. So let's just briefly mute the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and be wrapping this thing up a little earlier than normal, but we've been going for about 37 minutes and 43 seconds, approximately. So what else is going on here? Oh, G-Mang says, hey, Day9, what do you think about using nukes more in this matchup? Now, a lot of people might presume that that's just like a shallow sensationalist question, like, yeah, man, nukes are sweet. Don't you think they should be used more? But man, are nukes good in this game. Holy Jesus, watch the little one versus Nazgul. That game was awesome, just seeing nukes constantly blasting off the key points. And this map seems so good for nukes, because you know what? A lot of ground to cover, a lot of places to drop easily. And if Terran is nuking you like crazy and expanding a bunch, it's hard for Protoss to be able to both defend and attack at the same time. So I think nukes are perfect for this map in particular. So now I'm starting to just stroke my chin and think maybe two barracks, one with Tech Lab, one with Reactor, to get some sort of Marine Marauder combination, but then get some Ghosts early as I'm teching. And the reason I say Marines is to save up a little bit on the gas so I can tech a little more easily. To do some sort of fast tech play. Cool stuff. I also still want to try on this map Mass Reaper with mass expanding and getting a bunch of planetary fortresses. Getting crazy. Let us see here. What else is going on here? Lusan says, hey Dan9, Jinro took a big hit with the early Immortal push. Considering Jinro already had the Ghost Academy, what do you think with proper scouting a Ghost drop with a few nicely placed nukes could have changed the game around? Oh yeah, I already answered that question. Haha, sorry. Let's see here. Nitris said, on this specific map, oh whoopsie daisies, my computer's freaking out. Close. No, I do not want to ban users. I have a real bad habit of inadvertently just banning people. Because to ban them, you click on their name, and it's like, alright, you want to ban them, how long? I'm like, no, back up. Didn't get to ban Nitris. So on this specific map, would it be possible if you Thor rushed and supported with tanks and Hellions by expanding relatively earlier? Hellions do light damage, so they could penetrate those hard shields of Immortals. What do you think? I mean, I think the biggest reason I love mech on this map is that tanks are hard to get quickly in this matchup. Tanks are just super vulnerable in small numbers. I mean, in StarCraft 1, it's like, oh, I have a tank. I guess I'm not dying for 10 minutes. But in this game, you know, if he has an immortal, he kills the tank straight up. And this map gives you the opportunity to deal with that a little bit better. So, I mean, just completely throwing the Thor out the window, I think a straight-up early expand with some sort of tank support might be very, very, very effective. Or even doing something like opening up 2 factory, one with Tech Lab, one with Reactor, to do some Hellion action early, just because they're nice and fast. And then expanding straight up and just getting a bunch of tanks, abandoning one of those factories' reactors and getting 2 Tech Labs to really mass the tanks up. You know, use your barracks to build the Tech Labs, that way you can steal that as well. So yeah, I like mech on this map. I think that's pretty suave. So I am just going to take one more question, because as you can tell, my voice is sort of just giving up. Because I've been up for ages, and my project was awesome. I had a dog, and he was heated, and he had cold feet, and he, like, talked and stuff. I was like, yeah, my dog's like an actual animal. Yes, I was really proud of it. Man, that was a crazy day. Anyways, what's the last thing? People asking about Pro Mod. I know nothing about this. Haven't heard a thing. I've been busy in the last 3 days. Oh, great last question from Xander. When would High Templars be more effective than Immortals? What situation would you say opt for one over the other? So again, the biggest thing I think of is transitions. How do we set up getting High Templar? So one thing that I have seen on this map that I love, actually I'm going to back up just a little bit more. Part of the reason why getting Immortals I like in this case is because we can get the Observer really fast. If we were planning on doing stuff with Warp Prisms, we already have the Robotics facility up, so then we can get the Immortals along with that. It's all the lead up to Immortals that feel good. And obviously High Templar are super good, the way that Immortals are good, but how do we have a lead up into that? So now here's a build that I've seen on this map that I love. You straight Dark Templar rush, and you get 2 DTs out, and you just send one down each lane, pretty much denying any sort of troop movement out. You don't try to be ultra aggressive with the DTs. You just try to maybe poke in there and pull back, but really it's like a management tool. You manage Terran's aggression, because Terran really needs a lot of scans, or a Raven if he wants to be doing any action on either lane, because the distances are so far. Even if he does scan and kill off that DT, you just have another one positioned right there, 10 feet down the road, so then he has to try to scan that and that sort of thing. So if you DT rush, you already have the Twilight Council, you theoretically already have some gateways up, so then you can straight up transition to High Templar, and you're feeling happy. So that is a situation where I really like that, but again, think less about, is this unit good, or is this unit good? Think about, I like what this unit is, so how do I get there? What's the best way to get there? And really, a lot of very bad end ideas create really solid play just because someone thought about the best way to go about doing it. I mean, trying to think of a very ridiculous example. Oh yeah, okay, so mass Zergling, or like Ultralisks are really cool. I'm going to just straight up go for Ultralisks, and the way I'm going to stay alive is by only making Zerglings, so I can just save up all my gas and slam out a bunch of Ultralisks at the end. What I'm describing is actually a play that happened on Nostalgia way back when, and is actually occasionally resurfaced every now and again. But that strategy honestly began with Ultralisks are neat, and I'm low on gas. How do I maximize use of Ultralisks? And it's just Zerglings, right? You get tons of Zerglings. You actually get 2 Evolution Chambers really fast. No Lurkers, to hell with that. Zerglings, and that's it. And that setup of, it sounds crazy, but the setup of building up the gas and getting the upgrades, just, you alley-oop right into Ultralisks. Works out really, really well. You're completely ignoring anything like Lurkers, Mutalisks, Hydralisks, any of these gas units that really were getting in the way of your Ultralisks in the first place. Just by cutting them out, you have such a smooth, streamlined build. And that really is the hallmark of expert play, and really what will bring you to a high level is being able to have something that is smooth and streamlined like that. So you want to go High Templars, throw DTs in first to get that Twilight Council up. So with my rapidly failing voice, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up Day 9 Daily number 93. And we are finally going to be, ending things. It's March 31st. Tomorrow is April 1st, so tune into that cast. That is going to be it for me. So hey, take it easy, guys, and cheers.